music coming in at the top. Today on the show we have Steve Almaas. Steve, you might know him from Suicide Commandos, Beat Rodeo, or maybe one of his 7 solo albums. He has an 8th one coming out. It's called Everywhere You've Been. Steve is a beautiful example of why punk is the way to start. Jumping in right from making music for the fun of it, living in the energy, and taking that creativity and drive and focusing it into beautiful song craftsmanship, which is what his career and musical journey has led him to. I was almost not ready to talk with Steve. I would get lost in his stories and kind of zone into it and forget what I was going to ask next because they were so epic and kind of all-taking. Like, he played with the Ramones. He was friends with Tommy Ramone. How do you bounce back from that? Also, he had this was a beautiful tie into the Cleveland punk scene of early 70s. Now, I've been studying, at this point, when I did this interview, I just cracked open some books into studying into the Cleveland punk scene and really trying to get some of the names down and the people down. And this is going to be one of many where you're going to hear a lot of these names come up, like Peter Loeffner. And there's going to be times where I mix it up. And same with even Perubu, because I would just started at this point to really study them. If you guys don't know, some of these episodes are coming out months later. And Steve's new album is out now. Everywhere You've Been, you can hear it on all the streaming platforms. We're going to listen to one song right now, Cigarettes, Coffee, or You. Further, this podcast is mixed by Studio 44 Cleveland. If you go to Studio 44 Cleveland and hit up Jay Sparrow, he'll make your stuff sound great. So if you go to Studio44Cleveland at gmail.com or Studio44Cleveland at Facebook and reach out to Jay Sparrow, he can make your streamed needs, your audio needs, your visual needs, your video needs look and all sound great. And if you can like, subscribe, rate, review to the podcast and all the podcast platforms, and maybe give us a like or a follow on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, it really helps me keep talking to cool people and sharing those insights with you. So without further ado, here's my interview with Steve Almaas. All right, well, how's it going, man?
Well, it's been kind of a long day today. We switched our time till 4 because I was supposed to get my COVID vaccine today, and then we got 6 inches of snow and they canceled the appointment. So I'm stuck down here in Long Island and they're supposed to reschedule in the morning. So I'm kind of anxious to get that out of the way.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Like, not that you're stuck, but to get it out of the way and that you were able to get to jump on the vaccine.
I'm a teacher, so
okay, so am I. No way.
Oh, what do you teach? What do you teach?
I teach music.
I put a lot of music in my lessons, but I'm normally the computer teacher in elementary school. But this year I'm teaching distance learning, and they gave me a 3rd grade class, so I'm teaching 3rd grade this year.
Oh, like the whole thing? Like you all covering all subjects?
Covering all subjects.
Wow. Yeah. That gets to be 33 kids. Okay, yeah. It's hard enough to, like, I work at a charter school. I teach an adapted music course for kids with autism, pre-K to senior high. So I'm used to, like, having a lot of students with a lot of different angles, but it's always at least one subject. So they have to, like, be like, what's 3rd grade social studies look like?
Oh yeah, I'm used to one subject too, and I'm here to tell you, multi-subject is a lot harder.
Yeah, no, I've had to fill in for some teachers, and it's not easy. It's not easy trying to figure out. Let me just pick up your math lesson.
I mean, what I can't figure out is, they don't give you curriculum for everything, like ready to go curriculum for all How is that possible? Like, I don't know how old you are, but when I was a kid, you had like textbooks for all the subjects, and you went through the book. And so here you gotta just like kind of make a lesson I work like my there's like 6 3rd grade teachers right now, because there's like some special ed teachers where they have 2 in a class. But we divide up the subjects and have to write the lessons every week. That's crazy, I think.
I agree. It's weird. It's like, do you guys have like at least a standard thing? You have the standards to follow, right?
But that's not that's more of a hindrance than a help, you know.
Right, right.
It's more like, you know, the standards are something for them to yell at you for what you're not doing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's weird that in a way.
Where are you? Where are you, by the way?
Oh, I'm in Cleveland, so I relate to the snow.
Yeah, I'm in New York, so yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. Like I relate to it'd be kind of cool if you were just that one subject and you got to make your own curriculum and had to hit certain points, right? But when you have to do all these subjects and you don't really, maybe your forte isn't like history or whatever, and like now you
science in my case.
right. So now you got to figure out what a standard curriculum is, and like, so it's cool to have that flexibility if you know how to navigate that field and that subject. But if you don't, it's very vague, and you're like, am I making sure all these kids learn third grade science? I don't know. Like, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Was it I guess I did our school was online for the first half of it, and then we went in person online, kind of like
blended learning.
Yeah, like blended learning. Some kids online, and we would. It's so the charter school has 3 different buildings, and I go to all 3. But instead of going to all 3, I would go to one and stream to the others from that building, and then like push over the cart of instruments. You know, it's ukulele day. Here we are, and like it led to a lot of like learning how to navigate all this Zoom, Google Meet, streaming.
Well, that was one thing I was really lucky because I had that all in place already.
Nice.
I had Google Classrooms, you know, for all my classes, so I could, you know, I just sort of spent my time helping the other people get it set up in March when we did it, and that was just lucky. I learned that, you know, and, because nobody made me. I'm just I mean, I like that because it's the one subject. I'm just making up the curriculum as I go along.
Yeah,
you know, seeing what other teachers and other schools were doing, and just kind of doing it like that. So anyway,
it's cool.
Anyway, let's talk about music.
I was gonna say it's cool because you get to put yourself into it, and I think students pick up on that if this is an actual thing you're interested in. And granted, third graders, sometimes they don't care about anything. And middle schoolers, they get even worse about not caring about anything.
Yeah.
But the genuine authenticity that you express with the subject, for the most part, is going to carry. And like, it's kind of, and this is a good segue, it's a good tie into music. Like when you are genuinely expressing yourself on stage, people pick up on it. Or if you're faking your way through it, people pick up on it. How'd you?
Oh yeah, we start the day with a song in my online class every day. So
that's cool.
Is it it was. I have different songs that I sing with them, but a nice thing was, you know, we watched the inauguration a couple weeks back there, and when J-Lo came out and started singing "This Land Is Your Land," their jaws hit the floor because they couldn't. We sing that song in the class, you know, and they knew it, and they got really excited. You know, they couldn't believe J-Lo was singing it. You know?
Right. Well, that
was good.
That's cool. It's cool. That's so cool. Like, and as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, they know that too. It's kind of mind blowing.
They'll remember it.
Was it So I guess the kind of shift into music. What? Like, okay, with the Utopia House, what did that teach you?
Wow, there's a question.
Or what? How should I phrase it? What did you learn from the Utopia House experiences? I think that's a better way to phrase it.
Well, you know, I mean, when I met Chris Osgood and Dave All, the other 2 Suicide Commandos, they were both living in Utopia House. And my parents' house was just a couple miles away from there. And I was back I went back after a year of college and was living at home when we started the Suicide Commandos. And I mean, I don't know what I learned from the house so much, but I learned like everything from Chris and Dave. They were, 2 years older than me at an age where 2 years really made a difference.
Right.
And both really smart guys. And I think it would be safe to say I hadn't really encountered that many really smart people that were also really cool. And, so I learned a lot from those guys just about music and about life. They were both people that had, just knew a lot about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So just spending time around them, I think it rubbed off, I hope.
Well, clearly. So like, what records were spinning around then? What were like when you?
Well, that was like one of the things. Dave had been to England.
Yeah.
He went to England with his girlfriend, and the records he brought back were the first two Roxy Music records.
Nice.
John Cale's the record with Fear. Is that the one with Fear is a Man's Best Friend? That record. Dr. Feelgood and Ducks Deluxe, and the pub rock records and like the Roxy Music and Sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Nice.
And that was all the music we kind of started before, when we started playing, we were like trying to go out and play 4 sets in bars. Right. So our repertoire, we put all this music into our repertoire, and that made us stand out.
Was it because that I remember? I think Roxy Music Cleveland had a big spin with them.
Oh yeah.
Like, but so I guess the kind of back step. When did you get the bass in your hand? Was it from hanging out with these guys, or was music a thing in your life beforehand?
I had like basement bands in high school before that. My dad bought me a brand new Fender Telecaster bass when I was for a confirmation present when I was 14 years old. So I had played in junior high and high school.
And was it always like so? Okay, so was guitar around the family too? Because you play both, and like
yeah, I mean I did start on guitar,
okay.
But I got the same. Somebody had to play bass, and so
right.
the guy in the older brother band was selling his bass, so I could buy it for $30, and I became the bass player. And then I didn't really start playing guitar in bands till I had Beat Rodeo, which is a while later.
Yeah.
I always played bass, and
did it kind of help cement, like playing bass kind of help cement like songwriting and seeing it from that perspective? Because you were filling that gap.
That's another thing that I really learned from Chris Osgood. Chris Osgood was already writing songs when we started the Suicide Commandos. He had graduated from Hampshire College by writing a rock opera, and one of the songs in that rock opera was Mosquito Crucifixion, which the Suicide Commandos did to great success later. And so I was definitely just keeping an eye on him and him writing songs, and that made me want to have a go at it too. And then, that's what I mean. We kind of, the stuff we liked were like these, the aforementioned records that Dave brought back from England, and somebody had the Nuggets compilation that Lenny Kaye put together, and we liked all those 60s garage band records and stuff, and we were putting those songs in our set, and that's how we kind of just, organically got on the ground floor of punk rock, because when we started writing our own songs, we were doing what a lot of other bands were doing. And then when we heard the Ramones in spring of 1976, then that was just, for me, that just put the pedal to the metal of getting going on that, that they could write these really good songs that had just like 3 chords in them. And that meant, you could do something good with something really simple. And that was just the lesson I needed to learn to get started. And, and I started songwriting then, and I just never stopped.
That's all. What a good introduction with the Ramones too, or at least a good a kick to really get into it, because so much of what the Ramones are like good songs with like a ton of energy. like I think I mean, when you look at the Ramones, it falls into this is punk. These guys are punk. Look at they had the look, but the songs themselves stand out. And like now, when you first heard the Ramones, was it record? Did you see them?
Well, no, it was. This is an odd story too. We had a personal connection to them.
Wow.
I rented the basement of this when I wanted to move down to Minneapolis from out in the suburbs. And I moved down to Minneapolis and I rented the basement of a house from this school teacher. There's another teacher.
There we go. Ties in.
Well, as it happened, her daughter had run away to New York with Johnny Thunders when the Ramones came through.
No
and
way.
by this time, she was living with Tommy Ramone. Something she did for the rest of Tommy's life. They got married and they were together forever. But anyway, so her name was Claudia. Claudia was sending like cassette tapes and pictures and stuff back from all the stuff that was going on in New York in like CBs and Maxes. And I'm looking at this stuff. And by that time, that stuff was kind of spilling into Rock Scene magazine, kind of the same stuff that she was sending her mom. And so, I heard the Ramones the first on a cassette tape that Claudia had sent her mom.
Wow.
And then we just decided to call up CBGB's then and see if we could go play there. And like Chris Osgood called them, and they couldn't believe like a band from Minnesota wanted to come and play at CBGB's, but we did in like, in end of May in 1976. Wow. So it was really, and the first night I went to New York, I went out with Tommy and Claudia and went to this concert, this benefit for Wayne County that the Mink DeVille and New York Dolls and Blondie and all these bands played at. So it was quite an introduction to the scene.
You first into it. Wow, that's incredible. Yes. Whoa.
Yeah.
How'd that night go at CBGB's? Who'd you guys play with?
It was like audition night. I don't remember who any of the other bands were, but there was a group of people, like arty people from Minneapolis that had moved out to New York, and they all came down, and it was great. We had a great time. And they invited us back. They gave us another gig. I think we went back there in August, maybe that summer. And then we went out there 2 or 3 times a year for the next few years.
That's amazing. And do you remember any of the bills progressed after that first one? Like who you guys played?
The only bill that was memorable was when we were touring with Cleveland's finest, Pere Ubu.
Nice.
And we played 2 nights there with Pere Ubu. And that's really the only time we played there where the other bands on the bill were kind of a factor one way or the other.
How's the crowd for Pere Ubu? I'm talking to Dave Thomas next week, and I'm really excited.
Give him my regards, will you? I spent a lot of time in Cleveland with those guys. In Cleveland Heights, the Disco Drome record store, and Johnny Dromette, and the Pere Ubu were very good to us. That we got our record deal through them.
No way.
They recommended us to. Somehow, I think we got hooked up with Pere Ubu maybe through Chuck Statler, the filmmaker. But somehow we met them in like '76, and they would like host a gig for us in Cleveland on our way to New York, which was like the only place to play.
Right.
And they were great. I mean, a great band, and they were very good to us too.
Do you remember? Was it the Pirates Cove?
Yeah, it was
Okay,
definitely the Pirates.
nice. Wow, yeah, no, it's fascinating. Their music's fascinating. Dave Thomas is a fascinating character, and like, it's so crazy how all these scenes were connected, and like, I don't know. So I've been super excited to talk to you because I know you guys did some to kind of jump years and years ahead. You guys did a show with Dave Thomas, right? For that benefit show in
We
2009, I
did
think.
for Laura Kennedy
Right.
from the Bush Tetras, and when I first went to Cleveland, Laura and Cynthia Slay were the nerve gas dancers. Crocus had some name for them, but I remember these like cute punk girls that were hanging around back then. Now, before they had a band.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, I just read about them too. Okay, I didn't put that and that together.
And we did when at that benefit, Crocus got up and played Final Solution with us. We played Final Solution with him.
That's sick. Did you ever?
It was really fun.
Did you meet Peter Laffender?
No, he had died.
He'd passed by then. Okay. So how's it? So okay, with that benefit, with um, I'm losing my brain. Laura, right?
Yeah.
So what was her group and like?
Her group was the Bush Tetras from New York. Are you familiar with them?
A little bit based on like.
Well, here's the song. When we're done, go to YouTube and listen to "Too Many Creeps" by the Bush Tetras.
Too Many Creeps. Okay.
They have a lot of good records, but that's their greatest one. And yeah, I think David came and did that benefit because he knew them as girls that danced at Perubu concerts.
Got you. Okay.
And then later they had Bush Tetras was one of the biggest bands in New York, and they did well in England too. They were, part of the kind of post-punk early '80s scene. They were big in that.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely dive into their stuff. Did you guys ever go out that way? Go out to the UK?
What's that?
Did you guys ever make it out to the UK?
No.
Okay.
No. we went to Europe. We went to Germany and Austria and Switzerland in Beat Rodeo.
Gotcha.
Suicide Commandos never left the U.S. and Canada, unfortunately, but Beat Rodeo did go to Europe.
Okay, well, let's take a couple steps back. So Pirubu helped you get a recording contract, and you guys recorded at Sound 80, right?
We did.
Well, can you tell me about Sound 80? Because that was a pretty epic studio.
Yeah, unfortunately, never has a worse sounding record been made on better equipment than Suicide Commandos record. That, let's just leave it at that. I don't want to disparage anybody's work, but we didn't really know we just didn't know what we were doing as far as recording, and it was a great studio, but we didn't get the best sound out of it, I don't think.
Gotcha. Was it all you guys on your own then? And they're kind of like, yeah, figure it out.
Yeah, I think everybody was learning that was involved with the project. Yeah.
Okay. Well, because when you guys went into it, like, didn't Dylan just leave? Like, because
that had been a couple years before, but okay. That's where he did a big hunk of Blood on the Tracks. Yes. Right.
Because there's that picture of you guys in front of the mic, like.
Yeah.
That's so epic. That's so epic. But okay, wow, what I didn't realize how big a role Pirubu played in getting you guys hooked up with him. That's insane. That's cool. So, to kind of step it back, you guys, when you guys started playing together, when did like the sets? Because to get gigs back then and still now, you have to like do the bar gig, right? You have to play the crowd, and maybe it's different now because of COVID, but like when did it become a full original set? Or was it always you guys?
I don't know that it ever
Okay.
I mean, when we would go to New York, we would play all original sets because we
Gotcha.
would play one set.
Okay.
But even after a while in New York, I think we would do two, or in Minneapolis, after a while, after the original scene, we would do two sets. But then the cover songs were more like just songs that we felt like we made them our own. And that's why we were doing them, not because we had to do four sets a night. But at first, we did have to do four sets a night, and that's what got us noticed amongst other musicians in Minneapolis was our choice of,
Right.
odd tunes. And then we started writing our own and more and more and more. And yeah, the original stuff took over for sure.
Okay, cool. And but that's interesting, kind of bouncing back to the idea of the rock opera, and in that even that mindset of writing, because that's particular. You're thinking of songs in a long form narrative, not just a 2 minute song reel. When the Suicide Commandos kind of did the breakup hiatus, and you headed to New York, was that based off the connections from touring out there and playing CBGBs?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I had a leg up from being in Suicide Commandos. That got us gigs when I got out there, yes.
Gotcha. And when you started Beat Radio, which started as the Crackers first, right?
Well, that was Crackers. The Crackers was a different
Okay.
band. That was the band I moved to. That was the band I moved to New York with, and then
Okay.
that only lasted a year and a half or something. And then after floating around for a little bit, I started Beat Rodeo.
Gotcha. And that's really when your songwriting comes through. Like, and it may be just an instrument change, or like, not that it didn't in Suicide Commandos, but you're playing guitar in the Beat Radio, and like, it
Well, yeah, it's rodeo.
radio.
Sorry,
Gosh, dang. I've been losing my
no
mind.
rodeo,
Rodeo.
not radio.
Radio. I heard it on the radio.
um,
Rodeo. Oh man. No, it's
Yeah,
all good.
no, it was. I switched to rhythm guitar, and I had a really good bass player, and again, Beat Rodeo had musicians that really, again, sort of took it to another level for me, and like people that I could really learn from, and I did. I really learned a lot from those guys too. Just about music. They
Yeah.
were really good players,
Because those.
and that just gave me a lot of ideas for songs just by what they could do. It was really good.
Those records are really tight. The harmonies are at like another level, and it's interesting to see like this kind of like punk start and like all this creative energy used in one way. And usually you see the trajectory stay the same, but it's really interesting with your musical journey. Like it gets more in the singer songwriting, and like it stays with that energy and it or upbeatness, and like Beat Rodeo has this like kind of amazing like collection of all those skills, and it seems like a much more defined and makes much more sense with the record you just put out and the records that came in between it with your solo career. Like just how the songwriting took like this different path and narrative and like evolved to where it's at now. And in that band, it's really now the guys that got involved. Did they? So the Crackers fizzled out, and like, how did you come across these members in this in Beat Rodeo? Was it just from
Beat Rodeo were people I met in New York.
right, right?
The Crackers were people from
Oh,
Minneapolis that
okay,
came to New York,
all right. And then got
and yeah, I met the guitar player of Beat Rodeo through his girl. I knew his girlfriend, and it was just a chance meeting like that. And
gotcha.
he knew the other two. He knew the bass player and the drummer. And then, although the drummer and I, Peter Moser, had our own connection because he had gone to Hampshire College with Chris Osgood from the Suicide
Yeah,
Commandos. So that was just a bit of synchronicity there too. But yeah, it was when I met Bill. Bill knew the other players, and we got that together.
okay. Now, working with a group like in New York, that had to be much harder feat to do than in Minneapolis, I believe. Like,
Well, that's a funny
yeah,
thing. That the first half of the 80s in New York was this golden time for bands. If you got something going, there were so many, the drinking age was 18
yeah,
and kids poured into the college kids poured into the clubs from, you know, New Jersey and Brooklyn and Queens and everywhere. Kids poured into Manhattan and would come to these clubs, and the pay was really good. And you could play at Danceteria, you could play at Peppermint Lounge, you could play at the Ritz, you could play at the Lone Star, you could play at Maxwell's in Hoboken, and they all paid really well. And it probably something that maybe the Beat Rodeo could have done a little better. It was really hard to go off and tour where the pay wasn't as good and the work where in the long drives and everything, because it was so nice to play in New York,
yeah.
and you could play one or two gigs a month and pay your rent. It was great. And that kind of died around 86, 87 when the drinking age
Mm,
changed to 21, and the college kids couldn't go to the clubs anymore.
right.
That changed it. But it wasn't, rents were still cheap in New York. It it was really a golden age to be in a band in New York. It was a great time.
Gotcha. So, okay, because like I'm thinking of the
It was better. No, it was better than Minneapolis. It
wow.
was really good.
Yeah, because
It was really good.
that's amazing. That'd be so great if that's how it still was.
It was an amazing scene. It was just amazing time to be there and be playing in bands. It was great.
Man, wow. Do you so kind of the step back? I know, I don't know. I'm all excited and like, but did you guys ever share a bill with the Ramones? Any of those guys at that point?
Suicide Commandos played in St. Paul with the
No
Ramones.
way.
Yes,
What was that like?
it was fantastic.
Wow.
I think, I guess it was in 70. I can't remember if it was 76 or 77. I think I guess it was 77. Maybe it was 76. I don't remember. But it was before 78 for sure.
That'd be intense. Ah, that's so cool. So
No, it was in 77. It was, yeah,
okay.
and it was great. We had a big party afterwards that they all came
Yeah,
to. We had a party for them. It was really fun. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, well, and you guys had that connect with Tommy and like that's wow.
Yeah.
So they always
Yeah.
kind of knew you. Wow, that's so awesome. Cool. Now, to kind of hop back for a second, when with Hoboken, when did you start working with the bongos, and did that?
That was between the Crackers and Beat
Okay,
Rodeo.
so that was kind of before you had this thing going and New York was working out. But what was that like? Because those guys made quite a fuss in Hoboken.
I think their first record, which is really sort of a compilation of their
Right.
singles, is still really, really good record. And yeah, Rich. I didn't really join the band. I was like a second guitarist when they toured for a couple of tours.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really get involved creatively with the band. There really wasn't room. That was Richard's deal, and Richard, really did me a solid and helped me kind of launch my solo thing. The first thing I did was that EP with him called the title of the record was called Beat Rodeo, and then I made a group of the same
Yeah.
name.
And was that made up of the members that from Minneapolis that split?
No, the Beat Rodeo EP is basically me and Richard and Mitch Easter.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. Not, Hoboken's got a. It's like a little blimp. It's just of like a creative
Yeah,
scene.
Maxwell's was a fantastic place to play.
Did you ever cross paths with Chris Butler?
I met Chris, and I think we played a gig with Tin Huey in Peruba once at a theater in Cleveland.
Okay, nice.
I think.
Because they were the Akron scene, and Chris,
Yeah.
he lived out in Hoboken for a while with doing
Yeah.
his solo stuff and the waitresses.
Yeah, really good, talented dude. Yes.
It's crazy how small the world is. That's awesome.
Well, it was really small then. Like, one of the nicest things somebody said once about the Suicide Commandos, we were a punk rock band when you could own all the punk rock records. There were that few of them.
Yeah.
You could own them all. You could own every punk rock record there was because there weren't that many. And that's when we were a punk rock band.
I got all of them, all 6.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There weren't that many, and it was a good time, and it was small. It was just it was small. The whole CB's thing and it was pretty small.
Yeah.
And now you hear, "Hey ho, let's go" at the baseball game, but the Ramones could not get the kind of success they deserved in the 70s. They just couldn't. And it's a shame. It was a shame.
Yeah. Arguably, they road dogged relentlessly. Like, the Ramones' career never stopped moving until they did, which is crazy. Just to keep turning out stuff. Like, if you try to go through their discography, it's a work. Like, and they never let up on who they are, what they did. But I think because of that, that's why that now they've gained that respect. Is all the towns is like they were like the Johnny Appleseed of punk band starters. You know what I mean? Like, when they would leave a town, a band would form because, like, oh, they can do it, we can do it, and like.
And unfortunately, they've all passed too, except for
Marky and CJ. But those are later guys. Those are filling, not to discredit them, but like, they filled in later.
No, it was. It kind of changed for me after Tommy left.
Yeah. Well, he was a one. There was your connect, your like friend, and like he had a lot to do with their songwriting and recording. And as a songwriter, I'd imagine you would.
Yeah, and a producer.
Right. So I'd imagine a lot of it. That band was that guy, So.
Well, it was all of them. They all wrote. They all did a lot. It was great. Yeah.
So you guys got back together after kind of like, I think there was a quote from you saying like, all the Ramones are gone, but we're still here. Why haven't we got back together? Someone in the Suicide Commandos said that.
We were just kind of musing. We were sad about that. That they were gone. We decided to make another album while we were all still here, which we did in 2017.
Yeah. That's a fucking great record.
And thanks, man. We did really well in Minneapolis with that record, but I kind of felt like that record did not leave the Twin Cities, and that kind of bugs me.
Yeah.
I got, the guy, Howard, who is doing the PR for this record of mine, I really wish he would have done the PR for that record. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, Howard's awesome. I think he would have done. How'd you come across Howard?
Howard and he had a band around 1980, 79 called The Nurses.
Yeah?
And we booked, the Crackers played some shows around the Baltimore, D.C. area with The Nurses. That's how I met Howard.
That's awesome. He's got his hand. He knows people in the scene and like on like a different level. And I'm like, I haven't dove into look into his career, but The Nurses, I have to check him out. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a bummer that it didn't reach too far. But hopefully some people from this dive into it, because
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I'm
Sorry.
I said I'm proud of that record. You know, it really just kind of sounded like it sounds like us now, and but that we would have a musical connection that we could do that
Right.
now. But that was really fun. It was really fun to
And
make.
it wasn't inauthentic. It wasn't like we're getting together to do the thing, and like it, like how you said it
No, we didn't try to sound like we sounded in 1977.
was.
And it really,
It sounds like it's you guys now, but still doing like the same type of like it's as energetic as the first record in the good way, but it's got the songwriting chops and the production of what you guys can do now, and like
that was satisfying. I like the way that record
yeah, it's a really
sounds.
good record. You guys did a bunch.
Thank you.
You guys did a bunch of cool stuff with the promoting of that too. Like apparently you guys got a stretch of highway named after you guys.
We do. I can't say that I participate, but Chris and Dave, because I don't live there,
Yeah,
they go out and clean up the litter on this patch of highway that's sponsored by the Suicide Commandos.
that's awesome. It might be kind of alarming of a highway to drive down. The Suicide Commando Highway. I don't know if I want to go down this, but that's so awesome. So when you dove into more of your solo career, because you've put out like 6 records, and I think is this the 7th record that is coming out now?
I would have to.
Every
I would have to. Let me see. I guess I can count them as East River Blues Bridge songs, and All Too Human, Can Go a Wild One. I made 2 with Allie Smith, and I made. This is my 8th
record.
If
Okay,
you count the 2 duets record I made with Allie Smith, I think it's my 8th
yeah.
solo
The
record.
ones with Ali are really good. You guys lock up together harmony wise, and like those are really. How'd you meet
That was
Ali? How'd that come about?
Allie was my girlfriend at the
Okay.
time.
And did you meet her? Did she play out in another group and like or?
She did. She was the bass player in a band called Speedball Babies.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's like you guys lock it in. That's a tight. Those two duet records. It sound really good. And that kind of
They were really fun to make too. Those were kind of Valentines to her. You know, I tried to make environment for her to shine as a singer. You know, and it was fun. They were fun to make. Really
and
fun.
it kind of set the tone for like this new one in a way. Everywhere you've been, like this record you have coming. Is it released yet, or it's gonna be
Coming out March
March 5th?
5th was the
Okay.
release date.
And like the singer songwriter aspect to it. Does she record some harmonies on it? I'm trying to think. No.
No, but I have these amazing girls sing
Yeah.
on it. One of them's Daria Grace. She's the one that does the ukulele duet with me.
Okay.
She has a band called Daria Grace and the Pre-War Ponies, and they sing pop music from the 20s and 30s, like sheet music, pop music,
Tin
you
Pan
know, and
Alley tunes.
they kind of they stay away from the most well known ones too. So they're really good. And the other singers, Vibeke Saugestad, she's a pop star in Norway. She's but she lives by Daria. I met her through Daria, and she's awesome too. She played me this record called Thinkerbell that she was on with some Norwegian producer, and there's a song called Summer Days on that I just was like my favorite song I heard last year. So those girls sing all over the record, and Gary Lewis came in and sang a harmony on one of the songs. Gary from the
Yeah.
Jayhawks, and Dan Prater from Beat Rodeo sings on one of the songs, and so there's a lot of singing on this record, and that makes me happy too.
Vocally, it's all the harmonies are beautiful, the melodies are beautiful, and it's good songwriting. Um, Now, how many of these guys, besides the 2 singer, or did they trickle through some of the other 7 releases? or are these did they all just join you on this
Not, there's a lot of new blood on
Okay.
this record. The guy that the guitar players on this record have all pretty much played with me before. John Graboff probably does the heavy lifting on guitar and pedal steel guitar on this, and John is based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico now, but we've worked a lot over the years. John played in Ryan Adams and the Cardinals, and he played backs up I.R.S. Dement and a bunch of other really good, Laura Cantrell, good people. And Kenny Vaughn, who plays Marty Stewart in the Fabulous Superlatives, who I think are the best country band in America right now. Just Kenny and I go back to punk days, and in fact, we had a version of his band Johnny 3 in New York for a little while where we played some really good shows. But he and I go back to the 70s, and he came in and played on a couple songs. And then if I can ever help it, I always get Mitch Easter to mix my records, which means I always ask him to play guitar on a song or two too, which he does. So all the guitar players I've worked with before, the electric bass player Mark Sidgwick, I've done a lot of work with too, and but then the drummer is actually my daughter's fiance, a guy named T.J. Miani, and he brought in Tony Garnier to play stand-up bass on 3 songs. Tony is Bob Dylan's musical director, and Tony plays bass in TJ's jazz trio. So that was some new blood. Tony and TJ. I had not recorded with TJ before, and I love his feel on this record. He's got like a soulful kind of jazz touch, and I think it suited the songs really well.
To tie in with the Dylan reference, like it's crazy how all these factors work together, and it's cool that it's so well done. Like it seems like one tight band. Like even though you've just told me this group of all these different people coming in different ways, it sounds really put together and sounds like it's a tight group of people who play.
Well, these are pro singers and players, and we did most of the basics, in one studio. We did rhythm guitars, bass and drums, and the background singing all in the same place in Eric Gamble's Cowboy Technical Services studio in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. So, I mean, it is of a piece. Right. And then, then some other stuff was done in other, some of it was done up in Woodstock, and some of the singing I did at my own studio because I just like to sing when nobody's around. And, but yeah, a lot of it was done in this one studio, and then it was all mixed in, one place too. So I think that lends a cohesive.
Okay, that makes sense why that feels there like that. Did most of this come together before, like the pandemic? All these basic tracks. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense then. Why it's like not split up like that. I really dig the track "Cigarettes, Coffee, and You." I like the narrative of that one.
Yeah, Kenny plays on. Yeah, the girls sing great, and Kenny Vaughn on guitar on that too. I love it.
It's a great tune. Also, I know it's not on here, but you had there's a track on. I think it was just on your YouTube, which White Privilege, that I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, that's a song called "Pretty Picture" from my solo record that was called Kingo, a Wild One. And yeah, I got so upset about that, what happened with George Floyd, and that was kind of a response to, I just wanted to put that out there. It was something I wanted to say about it. And that song just happened to kind of voice the same feelings.
I thought that was
why Thank you. Well, you know what? Thank God. This is not new stuff, unfortunately. And you know what? Thank God for cell phones.
Yeah.
People can't do it. People can't do it with nobody watching anymore, and I think that's going to change things.
Well, it definitely has. Like everything's for good and for bad. For this, in that case, good because you can see everything and you can see blatantly how horrible people are treated in that way, and like there's no denying it. Here's a video of it, and then in a way, it also kind of puts everyone in this way of acting like they're always being recorded, which maybe is good. Like as a teacher, right? I'd imagine you get in this mindset of always having to lead by example, and like in times like this, how do you handle navigating that, and what I mean, like without like I don't know, without kind of make it seem like you're being too preachy in a way, but like it's a interesting times to try to navigate. How did the teaching career come along to kind of jump back to the beginning of the conversation?
Well, you know what? Somewhere I had a daughter in the early 90s, and suddenly just it became, necessary to find something to do that was a little more stable and could pay for the braces and stuff. And so
expensive.
I figured if I had to get up and work a job every day, I might as well try to find something that made me feel useful. So I chose I had a friend that had been a clothing designer that went into teaching, and I kind of followed her. And yeah, it's had its ups and downs, but it's been good overall. It's been good experience for me.
Gotcha. It works out as far as like doing was it weekend warrior dashes? You can still play out on the weekends and stuff, and like you're done usually by 4, except for when you got
and summer's
right?
off. There's a lot of good stuff like
so
that.
I guess in the sense that it really works out to be a musician and be a teacher.
Well, pleasure. That was nice, and it's fun to revisit the Cleveland time, and you obviously did your homework, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. This has been great.